the action of the Central Bank of Kenya is actually going to stifle innovation in Kenya. And I hope that the central bank understands, look, we're moving into a new age. There is actually what's known as predatory lending. People are forced to take a loan, or they're encouraged to take a loan, and then what happens is that if they don't repay, there's all sorts of consequences, and they start sending you messages and, this, that, and the other. But I think it's important here that we realize, look, the Central Bank of Kenya works on the basis of bricks and mortar. We're living in a new age today. So they've got to change their whole operation, and they've got to come to realize that, for example, American banks are doing things differently. They also have to enable Kenyan banks, or to allow Kenyan banks to operate differently. And if we don't do that, we are in fact going backwards rather than forwards. One of the great things about Kenya is we've got the biggest bank in Africa in terms of clients. NCBA has got 65 million clients. 5 million are in Ivory Coast. They don't even have a branch there. So, this thing of lending online and borrowing online and doing all your transactions online, ISACA is obviously addressing the whole thing of cybersecurity, because this is a major issue, that, if you don't have cybersecurity, you have a real problem. You can, I was reading just yesterday or the day before about an entity that had lost $470 million in bitcoins. So, in this case, we've got to have cybersecurity. That's, as I mentioned, ISACA is all about that, okay? So if you have that security and, the rest of the world is doing things in a particular way, and you stand back and you say, no, here we deal only with money. The problem is, PricewaterhouseCoopers in Kenya did a study. It's now 1 or 2 years old. Their conclusion in that study was that we have overregulation in Kenya. And if you have overregulation, you stifle industry. I remember we once had 30 Kenyan entrepreneurs go to the United States. And in this case here, they came back with a totally different view about business. In the United States, you can start up a business very easily. That encourages people to start businesses. One of the problems that we have in Kenya, I know a lady who started up a business. She had to get 17 licenses. Now, these take time. She's a working woman. Another thing that is very, very important, though, and we were talking about it, Mercy was talking about it a little bit earlier, is trust. Trust is based on honesty. And if we want Kenya to become a wealthy country, we have to develop honesty. If we don't do that, what's going to happen is we can have laws, we can have all sorts of things. You don't solve problems by passing laws. You don't solve problems by just having increased legislation. You have development taking place when you have good people.
Having policies is good, but enforcing of these policies is probably what we need to improve on from our government regulations as well as our own individual organizations. We need to ensure that we're not just developing policies for the sake of it, just to tick a box or just to say that Kenya has, implemented this policy by and large. We need to ensure that enforcing of these policies are done, and that will be done by the various regulatory bodies that are in place to ensure that we are enhancing our digital trust capabilities in Kenya for the various public and private organizations and even for our citizens.